When do you want?
So, good morning. Currently, we live in a fast pace where things are way too complicated and move way too fast for us to keep always at the same rate. So, this often makes us forget things that are important or things that we should acknowledge more but are just kind of there and we don't think about them for too long. For instance, the environment. One thing that when we think about the environment, we think about plants, trees, animals, but we don't also consider a lot the fact that we're also part of the environment and every action that we make also affects the environment. Today, I want to talk to you about carbon dioxide increase in the atmosphere, which has caused global warming. For some, global warming is considered to be a myth, for others is not. But one thing that is undeniable is that the presence of these carbon dioxide gases that have been emitted have been increasing in the last few years since the 80s. As I'm going to show you in this graph, the parts per million have increased from 340 and up to 420. This is the biggest change it has had since the start of human history, which is a lot because if you would take a whole graph of how these parts per million have gone through the years, it would go increasing or varying through 320 and 340, but not above those levels. But since the 80s, it started to increase rapidly, and well, according to researchers, it is mostly due to the fact that the United States, during those times, started to produce a lot more and to sell a lot more to the world, and a lot of the world started to move at that pace faster. So for instance, China, when the United States started to sell a lot more, China started to produce a lot more. Now China is the highest emitter of CO2 in the planet, followed by India and then the United States. So there's already a direct correlation between the rise in the CO2 levels and the temperature of the world. It has increased through the years in the way you can see. In the y-axis we have the degree in Fahrenheit, and in the x-axis we have the years. As we can see, it has been increasing and increasing, even though since 2010 it hasn't increased with the same intensity. It has been increasing at a good rate compared to previous years. So this is dangerous for us because it affects lives all over the planet, because if the temperature goes too high, the ice sheets start to melt, and if they start to melt, then all the coastal regions start to float, and if they float, well, most people are moved and displaced from their homes, and they are forced to go to other places which don't have the same space. And not only we are affected, but also animal species and other species are affected. For instance, animals which live in coastal regions, which are forced to move to more center regions, affect human lives. Like for instance, with invasion, like there were some zones in I don't remember the exact name of the island, but it's an island near Philippines, which raised the level, which will raise the level of sea in that specific region, and some how do you say rodents, and some rodents were moved from that zone to the part where families live, and they had to deal with that. Next. Okay. Now, in the current situation that we live, it is a serious problem for everyone, because even though it doesn't affect all the regions in the world in the same way, it eventually can become worse for everyone. So it starts in the zones that are more industrialized and that have less restrictions of use. For instance, in China, next. In China, as you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, the smoke has gone way too, in some regions of China, the smoke has gone way too condensed that people are forced to wear masks that for breathing, and even in Canada, they have already started to sell air in bottles. Yes, so this kind of issue is becoming even more serious after years and years. So we have to do something about it. So I thought about what we should do, and I thought that a definite solution would be too complex to consider because of the fact that it covers the whole world. But for instance, in Colombia, we can talk about the fact that industries have in the process always something called carbon sequestration, which is useful for many processes because it uses carbon from the atmosphere, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and stores it to use it for something. The thing is that it most of the times ends up being released back again into the atmosphere, so we kind of don't do anything. And there are some things that I proposed, for instance, in the United States. They used these ethylene glycols production through carbon dioxide, which what it does is that it uses carbon dioxide and processes in an industrial plant, and then it takes it to make a product that is used for cleaning or for bottle making or for acids. And the thing is that this process is useful, but it always has its downsides, and it's that it's a bit more expensive than the usual processes that people use in the industry. So I thought that a solution that we can all participate in is that we as people move more and take into account that a lot of people are affected by this, and we could eventually, like here in Colombia, be affected way more by this. We should move industries into being more eco-friendly, into making them pay for this kind of processes that are a bit more expensive, but that are that pay for the effort, because it makes our planet feel better, and it makes us eventually not worsen our condition, our life. Next. So I will end the presentation with this quote. I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water to create many rivers. From Mother Teresa.